Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. As heat builds across our province, so too do the hazards of working in higher temperatures. From hot kitchens to scorching outdoor jobs, workers face all kinds of potential issues. If you have to work in the heat, how do you stay safe? And in our second half hour, it's the grocery store debate. Self-checkout versus cashiers. Which do you prefer and why? I'm Dan Burritt, in for Michelle Elliott this week. Welcome to BC Today. We are into the heat across BC now. Environment Canada says 14 new temperature records were reached yesterday, from Cache Creek to Kelowna, Pitt Meadows to Port Alberni. Pemberton, for example, hit 39.5 degrees Celsius yesterday, beating the old record of 38.1 set in 2004. But in the heat, people still work. In some cases, some businesses, though, have decided it's just too hot. Victoria restaurant owner Tarn Tianuth closed several hours early yesterday because of the heat wave. She says she's in a privileged position to do so, but says it's safer. And older buildings like hers don't have air conditioning, so the only option is a fan.
Heat wave is like average about 36 degrees in here, and we can't put anything in here except for a fan, and I don't think that helped that much anyway, you know? It's just circuit of hot air in here. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What kind of toll has it taken on your staff?
I mean, we have a staff go home early last time because of heat exhaustion, or heat, what did it call?
That's right.
Heat exhaustion. Just sick from the hotness. They got dizzy and stuff. And I say to keep hydrated, but you can do so much when you run up and down the stair, bringing in and out food like 50 times a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it seems like you've been, trying to weigh a lot of things when figuring out whether to keep open or not. What's going through your mind in that?
Staff safety first, and also customer safety. It's hot in here. It's not really enjoyable for anyone, staff or customer, and profit. Or I'll pick staff safety over profit any day. And
Victoria restaurant owner Tarn Tianuth. She runs the Dumpling Drop in Victoria's Chinatown neighborhood. We want to hear from you now. Do you work in a hot environment or know someone who does? Indoors, outdoors, is it a kitchen? Is it a construction site? Perhaps a farmer's field? How do you handle the heat? What precautions do you take? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 is our number in Metro Vancouver, pound 690 on your cell phone. Please be hands-free or pulled over if you're driving. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca. We've reached two experts today for this discussion. Dr. Melanie Gorman-Ing, health and exposure scientist with the BC Construction Safety Alliance, and Susanna Perpick, WorkSafe BC's Senior Manager of Prevention Field Services. Thank you for joining us. Susanna, I want to start with you. We've got some numbers around claims. WorkSafe BC had an average of 41 claims of heat-related illness per year between 2018 and 2020. The number went up during the heat dome, understandably. It's remained high. It was a total of 81 claims last year. What are the reasons that you're seeing a spike in heat-related claims?
Well, again, similar reasons each year, Dan. The work environment that the workers are working in, again, sometimes things change, conditions change, and it's so important to keep in mind that work environment can change suddenly and needs to be continually monitored. The work to be done, again, work activities can change, exertion levels can change again with that. So again, important to keep in mind that with the current heat warning in place, the work to be done, the exertion levels, the type of activities, again, oftentimes they can't be done before 11 o'clock or after 3, the cooler parts of the day. Again, so specific plans need to be put in place and workers need to be trained on those. So sometimes each of those, again, elements needs to be reconsidered and workers need to be engaged in those discussions. Mm-hmm. Further, the workers, again, pre-existing conditions, specific and unique personal factors need to be considered. So the reasons can vary in terms of the work environment, the work to be done, and the workers themselves.
How busy is WorkSafe right now when it comes to either monitoring or educating work sites, employees, employers?
We are sharing messaging again and working in concert with our government on sharing information relating to the heat warning that just was issued. Again, the heat warning was issued in advance of the Sunday to Thursday escalated temperatures. our officers are sharing information with all employers. Our website is active. And again, the 5 key elements that need to be considered, again, in any assessment, worker training needs to be front and center, engaging workers early in the day, especially in these times. Ongoing monitoring, heat stress assessments, again, that consider, as I said earlier, the environment, the work to be done, and the workers themselves. The provision of water is critical, not a sip now and then, but again, staying hydrated. Having a glass of water recommended is about every 20 minutes, again, to not let thirst set in, because that's when problems start. Different controls, and again, we heard from the previous interview that indoor environments are a key consideration, manufacturing areas, restaurants, outdoor construction areas, farms. Again, making sure that if the work can be avoided, that's always the safest thing, or if the work can be planned at a different time of day, different controls, and again, cooling vests as a last line of defense after all of the other areas have been explored where workers can be protected.
Melanie, what are the main health risks the construction industry particularly needs to be aware of in the summer?
Yeah, every summer we at the BC Construction Safety Alliance, we send out resources and social media blasts to let industry know of some of the unique hazards that exist in the summer. And there really are 3. There's heat stress, which we're talking about right now, UV exposure from the sun, and also the risk of exposure to wildfire smoke. And one of the challenges is that you can be exposed to all 3 at the same time. And that's something that has to be kind of managed. So with heat stroke, or sorry, not heat stroke, with heat exposure, the health risks can range from a rash when you're sweating too much. You can have cramps, you could faint, heat exhaustion, all the way up to heat stroke, where your body just can no longer regulate your temperature at all, and that's a very serious condition that can lead to long-term damage or death.
What about when it comes to particularly with construction workers outside? I mean, we know cities can be those heat sinks, particularly in the hottest hours of the day. Do workers eventually get used to it, or where's that line?
Yes, so workers do get, I mean, there is some acclimatization that can occur to heat. However, when we have a heat wave like we're having at the moment, there just is not time to acclimatize to the heat because it has come on so suddenly. That takes up to 2 weeks to acclimatize, and you need to do it very gradually and methodically. And when there's a heat wave, people are just suddenly in it, and so you need to make sure you're taking frequent breaks. Try to do your heavy work out in the morning. One of the challenges in construction is that we're often doing really hard labor where people are, they're doing strenuous work, which gets their body temperature up. Also, people have to wear personal protective equipment, coveralls sometimes, long sleeves, long pants, respirators, and all of those things can contribute to the heat load on your body. So so workers really need to, and employers need to make sure that they're taking that into account, taking breaks, drinking water, working in cooler locations whenever they can, maybe doing the hardest work in the morning when it's cooler.
Susanna, back to you. Let's shift inside, as we heard from Tarn running a restaurant. Anybody who's worked in a restaurant in the summer, whether you're deep in the kitchen or nearby, it is an absolute, it can be just sort of an inferno. What specifically do you recommend or do you watch for when it comes to indoor environments?
Again, similar to outdoor environments, really the conditions need to be monitored. And again, the training needs to be provided on really understanding when those first signs of concern arise, when excess sweating, dizziness, nausea, again, those first signs that folks are uncomfortable. Ensure there's adequate first aid. And again, that those procedures are in place and that supervisors are engaging their workers in discussions around what to do at the first signs. Make any modifications that you can make. Again, change work practices, again, to stagger work activities so that again, that rest cycle can limit that exposure. And again, rotate work activities, lots of hydration again. very similar to an outdoor environment, ensure that folks are comfortable and that they're well hydrated. And again, that there's a lot of different discussions happening around what to do when first concerns arise.
How do you handle the heat if you are working in it, indoors, outdoors, whatever you do? Give us a call now, 1-800-825-5950. Across Metro Vancouver, our number is 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone. Please be pulled over or hands-free. And you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. Ryan writes us an email. He says, I work for a waste disposal company, and 2 of the 3 trucks I drive don't have access to air conditioning due to mechanical issues. I drink 4 to 5 bottles of water a day. Sometimes I'll even jump into sprinklers. Hopefully, if that's the case, he can find a washroom relatively easily. Susanna, is there any issue with the fact that we're also in extreme drought conditions in parts of our province? And does that put any limitations on the amount of water an employer or an employee, a site can use?
I don't believe that currently has an impact. Again, water is definitely to be provided, again, at regular intervals. So again, I think that hydration is the key. And the caller, or pardon me, the email indicates that that's being done. So again, I would focus on that level of hydration and ensure, again, that thirst isn't setting in.
Mm-hmm. Melanie, how do workers respond to warnings over heat in your experience?
Yeah, in my experience, people don't like to be too hot. So I think that people are often receptive to messaging about heat exposure. I know people like the summer as well, so people are used to being outside. But when you're working, that really is it's very different from relaxing at the beach with a drink, taking a dip whenever. If you're working, if you're wearing heavy clothing, you do really need to be careful. And employers, I think, also need to be receptive to the messaging, because the reality is that workers aren't always in charge of what they're doing day to day. And so it's up to employers to make sure that workers are scheduled and correctly and have everything that they need to protect themselves.
You mentioned that the 3 main health risks the construction industry needs to be aware of is heat illness, UV exposure, and wildfire exposure. We know with fires becoming more intense, more frequent, whether they're starting earlier or starting later and lasting longer across our province, do there need to be, in your estimation, better protections for wildfire fighters and those who are trying to battle these giant blazes?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the firefighters, they're exposed to a lot of heat because they have to wear a lot of equipment. They're working near the fire in many cases. I am aware of some research being done, I believe, through the University of British Columbia about the health hazards faced by the wildfire firefighters, and there is certainly more attention being paid to that, and I think it's very important for sure.
Now, one industry we have that can be particularly intense is roofing. I've done a number of stories on it in the middle of the heat. I didn't have to be pulling up shingles, but my Lord, it was hot up there. Odell Burnett is a partner at Premium Roofing in Kelowna. We spoke with him earlier today. He notes it's not just the heat that his workers are facing, but it's smoke. And we know there are some warnings around there that is a challenge as well. Let's have a listen.
A lot of the guys are drinking at least 4 liters of water a day. The smoke is bad. It's been worse in other years. Today is not too bad.
What is worse to deal with? Is it the smoke or is it the heat?
I would say the heat. There are extreme conditions with smoke where it does cause you not to be able to work, and even a healthy person can start to cause pain. But right now, I would say that it's not too bad. It's most people are out at work today in most all trades that I've seen around town.
How does this summer and perhaps recent summers compare to seasons past when it's been hot or smoky?
I would say it's comparable to other seasons. Years ago, we had some really, really hot weather. I don't know if it was about 17 years ago. And then just in the last 4 or 5 years, we've had 2 or 3 seasons were really extreme for smoke. But smoke is a little better in Kelowna this year than some past years, I would say.
And how understanding are customers when, for example, because of heat or smoke, you have to tell them our crews just can't be out here, it's not safe?
Yeah, most customers are very understanding. We try to start very early in the morning and then quit early on the hot days around, anytime between 1 to 2:30, just so that they're not in the heat all day long and they get a lot of the work done in the cool early morning temperature.
That's Odell Burnett. He's a partner at Premium Roofing in Kelowna, noting that not only are they dealing with hot temperatures, they're dealing with smoke. Susanna, if a worker is concerned about their working conditions, it's hot, it's smoky, whatever they're doing, but they're also concerned that if they speak up, it may cost them their job. What route can they take? What avenues of how can they alert you, and how can they try and better the situation?
Workers, in the case of heat, should consider, are they uncomfortable? Or are they experiencing the symptoms of heat stress as we described? Again, are they starting to sweat excessively, the dizziness, the nausea, the first signs? Are other workers also experiencing the same concerns? Has the employer been advised? And again, has the employer provided information relating to the current conditions and what the procedures will be, what the first aid procedures are in the emergency response plan? And has the employer conducted a heat stress assessment that he or she has shared with all of the different workers, contractors, and anyone that comes to that work site? Workers must clearly inform their supervisor or employer that they're refusing to work, and the supervisor or employer, after receiving the report, must immediately conduct an investigation and again ensure that any unsafe conditions are rectified. If again workers don't receive the answers that they feel comfortable with, they are welcome to call us and we will review the concerns.
In your experience, how often do employers follow up on employee concerns?
I believe that employers make every effort, and we hope that they make every effort. But if workers have any residual concerns, they're welcome to call us and we'll have a conversation about that.
Melanie, what about on your side? If somebody is concerned, whether it's a worker or maybe it's a supervisor, but they're still nervous because we know that they're thinking, if I bring this up, I might be labeled a problem employee. What can they do?
Well, just follow the steps outlined by WorkSafe BC. Workers do have a right to refuse unsafe work. If they are concerned, I would suggest first, speaking with your employer, raising your concerns. We have a lot of information on our website at the BC Construction Safety Alliance, and all construction employers in BC are members of the BC CSA, and we're also here for workers. So they can certainly get in touch with us if they have questions or want any information about heat or anything related to health and safety in construction.
Dylan writes us to say, I work construction outside. Just like kangaroos, I like to wet down my forearms, and that helps to circulate cold blood, cooling the core, as well as taking frequent breaks and avoiding heavy clothing. And I think we have a call now. David is joining us from Roberts Creek. David, what's your experience working in the heat?
Thankfully, I've never been a roofer in Phoenix, but I did work in Miami for a little while, just doing technical work. And, I was staying in a hotel. I sent my clothes out, and something I'd never had happen before, they starched everything, which I thought was kind of strange. But then I discovered it was marvelous in the heat. The stiffness in the fabric stands away from your body and you get some ventilation. And, made a real difference.
So it was almost like wearing a kite.
Instead of everything, draped right against you, you actually had some ventilation.
And in terms of your experiencing being in that extreme heat, we know how hot and humid, particularly Florida and Miami, can get. Was your employer receptive to concerns like that?
Well, it wasn't bad for me. I was mainly doing technical work in recording studios, so everything was air conditioned. It was just when you were outside. And like every afternoon, about 2 o'clock, you'd get this torrential downpour, and then it would all evaporate. And humidity would just shoot up like crazy. So I began to understand taking the afternoon nap.
If only we could all do that. David, we appreciate the call. That's probably a good tip, especially in the middle of the heat. Susanna, I want to go back to you around penalties and particularly, and you said you hope that majority of employers follow the directions when it comes to heat and heat-related illnesses. What sort of penalties can workplaces, employers face if workers are not being protected?
Well, each workplace will be evaluated, and discussions with employers and workers will occur with our officers across the province. And again, if there is evidence that there's a lack of control in relation to heat stress, again, orders may be written or the work may be stopped. So again, each situation is important to evaluate uniquely and to see what is present or what is not.
In your experience, have you had to shut down many sites?
It has happened, but again, generally speaking, employers are very aware of the recent heat concerns and again are taking action.
All right. James joins us from Spence's Bridge. James, what's your experience in the heat? Hello, James. Go ahead.
Hi. I'm a guy who works out in the field, out on the land all day long, pretty much, when I can. And I've actually worked in temperatures of over 50 degrees Celsius in Spence's Bridge. It's hotter than Lytton here. And when it's hot out, I have to completely soak my shirt, my underwear, and I like my socks to be slightly damp, and then I can work in those temperatures. It's the UVs that are really tough to deal with because there's not much left of the ozone layer. But one thing I am concerned about is all the fire smoke, and the BC Ministry of Environment should be putting up pollution monitoring stations in pretty much every town. So workers can look on their phones to see what level the pollution level is, and if it's high, they should be getting out of those areas. If they're on a roof of a building or in a farm field, and getting somewhere where the air is safer. The BC government could be helping the situation and the workers out much better in this area. So that's pretty much what I have to say.
James, would you ever consider wearing something like a mask, something to filter out that smoke?
Yeah, I've actually worn N95 masks, or 95s. And one day it was black at the end of the day, pretty much. This was during the Lytton fire. And I thought to myself, well, this thing isn't reusable, and I can't even afford to buy a mask every single day. If the government could help people out in that way, that would be great. I would certainly wear one more often if the cost was reduced. But your regular surgical masks aren't going to do much for smoke. But the N95s, I was quite stunned. When you take them off, you can really feel or smell the fire smoke. Put it back on, you don't smell it so much. But you still are getting very, very fine particulate in your lungs through those masks, and that is going to harm you still.
James, we appreciate your call and glad that you're able to stay safe and continue to do so in sometimes 50-degree Celsius temperatures.
Yeah, we've been in the 40s here several times already this year, including yesterday.
Wow. James, stay safe. We appreciate your call from Spence's Bridge. I'd like to wrap up with Melanie and Susanna. Melanie, what do you think of that suggestion around having more pollution monitoring around, whether it's in wildfire areas or even in cities where we know that sometimes we get that brown haze and that pollution?
Yeah, so we do have there's a air quality health index that is reported for most major population centers in BC. It doesn't cover everywhere. So we also, there is particulate matter, PM 2.5, that is reported from many regions in BC as well, and people can check that. It's available on the BC government website. So that's one thing that I recommend that people have a look at. But we can always use more monitoring and more information to help protect ourselves, for sure.
And is more monitoring an option in your mind, Susanna?
Absolutely. I think that monitoring for changing conditions of any sort is really, really important. Engaging workers in those discussions, and really making sure that the training around any of these elements of plans that must be in place is shared with all workers so that everybody on every work site is safe.
We appreciate your time and your expertise, both of you. Dr. Melanie Gorman-Ing, Health and Exposure Scientist with the BC Construction Safety Alliance, and Susanna Perpick, WorkSafe BC Senior Manager of Prevention Field Services. And if you want more information around your specific city, town, municipality, you can go to cbc.ca/climate. It's an interactive website we have set up. Type in your what am I trying to say? You can type in your address and you'll be able to see the current temperatures where you are. Coming up, we're going to roll into grocery stores where a debate is heating up. Self-checkout stands or cashiers. Why are some companies going in that direction more often? And what do you think? That's after this news update with Michelle Morton.
Good afternoon. Here are the headlines from the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Police will again be enforcing a court injunction in the Fairy Creek area at the request of the Teal Cedar Logging Company. The RCMP says there's been an increased presence of protesters obstructing and interfering with forestry work in the area on Vancouver Island. In 2020, protesters set up camps in the Fairy Creek watershed to protest old-growth logging. Hundreds were arrested after the court granted Teal Cedar an injunction in 2021 prohibiting protesters from interfering with work. For a second day in a row, Hello Ferries has cancelled all of its scheduled departures. It's the new ferry service hoping to attract travelers between Vancouver and Nanaimo. Yesterday was supposed to be its first day, but it cancelled all of its departures due to high winds and a power outage late Sunday night. Hello has now suspended all of its departures today and hopes to operate on a reduced schedule tomorrow. The company says the safety and well-being of its passengers is steering its decisions. And there are no reports of damage after an earthquake on Haida Gwaii this morning. Earthquakes Canada says the magnitude 4.4 quake struck at about 5:15 south of Dodging Geeks. Officials say no tsunami is expected. Now a look at the local forecast. A heat warning remains in place. Sunny today with highs of 30 degrees except 33 inland and 24 near the water, and clear for tonight with a low of 17. Back to BC Today with Dan Burritt.
Michelle Morton, we know you like to get outdoors. You like to hike.
I do, yes, very much.
How's it going in this heat?
Well, I have to say I haven't gotten out there when it's been this hot, but I will definitely be packing a lot of water and some cold treats. We all like cold treats and snacks.
Absolutely. In the newsroom or outdoors?
I mean, everywhere.
Everywhere, yes.
We need that in the newsroom as well as coffee.
Cold coffee, cold treats. I try and get out, but we do exercise later in the day, tennis, soccer, wherever it is. But holy moly, you notice the difference when it's 30, 35 above, right?
I know. What do you do yourself to stay cool?
Stay in the shade. Pick the shady side of the tennis court.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Partner loves that. Oh,
loves, no pun intended,
yes,
right?
Yes, exactly. Hey-oh.
Oh.
Well done. Oh. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Dan.
Welcome back to BC Today, and thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1, live streaming on CBC Gem at cbc.ca/BC and on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Hello to everyone listening in Caslow at 8:60 a.m. and in New Hazelton, you're hearing us at 11:70 a.m. So, it's a retail debate that elicits strong opinions, to say the least, and some groans of frustration. Self-checkout versus cashiers. Self-checkout is attractive to some big box retailers and others because it can reduce labor costs. Experts say that many customers are drawn to the machines to avoid long lines at the cash register, but many of us know those machines are not always reliable or not always user-friendly, at least at first. Video Mining, a U.S. market research company, found that self-checkout made up more than half of all customer transactions last year, a big spike from 2017 when the machines accounted for about a third of sales. But is this because consumers prefer self-checkout or because they no longer have a choice? We want to hear from you. Do you prefer self-checkout or being helped by a cashier? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950. Across Metro Vancouver, our number is 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone. Please be pulled over or hands-free. If you're driving, email us bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining us now, David Ian Gray, founder of Dig 360, a retail advisory headquartered in Vancouver. David, good to see you.
Good to see you, Dan.
What's in it, self-checkout, first of all, for the retailer? Is there anything beyond just the labor costs that they're saving on?
Well, I liked your sum up at the beginning, by the way. You should probably just take my job.
No, I already have too many jobs.
A lot of it is the game in retail right now is very much about economics, and it has been, for the last 10, 15 years, and it's about stripping costs. So cost is a big one. It's also about managing flow in the store. So, when you have the big long lines, they impede other people trying to get back and forth to do their shopping. So anything that's making an efficient operation over and above cost savings is useful. And when it works really well, they're trying to enhance customer experience. So that is also a big goal. They may say it's the biggest goal, but all three of those are important.
Anecdotally, whenever I go to a grocery store, and there's one near where I live, there's usually a staff member who is helping people in the self-checkout line because perhaps, like me, they've run into the problem of you bring up produce or you don't know what the number is and you have to search for it. Is that sustainable? Like, if that person is already standing there and there's a free till, why aren't they just moving people through there in the cashier?
Well, if you do notice that, there could be maybe 6 checkout tills open with one person quarterbacking, right? So there's still an advantage from a labor point of view for the retailer. But you raise a good point, and I think this is true not only of self-checkout, but technology is so pervasive in everything we do now. When it works, and that could be, I'm going to make up a number, 90% of the time, it really works. It does all the things that it claims to do. It's the other 10% that we get snagged up on. And a lot of the discussion around self-checkout where it's not working is pretty frictionful. Like it's, you get your examples were bang on, is it a cabbage, a red cabbage, green cabbage? How do you enter it in? All those things. Or I've done it where I hit 2 items by mistake. I can't clear it on my own. I have to get someone over. The exception handling at self-checkout, and I would argue across most of our tech experiences as consumers, that's where we need to figure it out better.
Cody joins us from Trail. Cody, where do you lie, self-checkout or cashier?
I lie with the cashiers, Dan.
Why is that?
Because the self-checkout is a royal pain in the butt. I understand, I understand it. The stores are busy and there's a big lineup that everybody would like to go through the self-checkouts to avoid to save the time and to not be stuck in the lineups with the seniors that have to slowly count their pennies, because I've been there a time or two. But I've worked in the retail industry, and I like to and I'm also a consumer, and I like the camaraderie that you get when you get the friendly cashiers, because with people who have developmental diverse abilities, sometimes cashiers won't understand you, and they might not help you depending on what your disability is. And as where those cashiers, I go to my Walmart and Trail, and I'm well known there, and I've got people that I know there that are able to understand me. And I feel that cashiers are the best assets to have in stores, not self-checkout, because whether you go to Colville or if you go, I know everybody that used to come into our store and Trail would say, oh, we're going down over the line, we're going down to Colville because it's cheaper down there and everything. And down there, they don't have the self-checkouts.
And Cody, if you don't mind me asking, you raise a really good point that our colleague Kathy Brown raised with me, and I'm glad you brought it up.
And the reason that I've heard Kathy a couple times because she's a disability advocate.
That's right.
Myself, that I feel that if the big box stores are going to advise us to shop online, it's going to take away from so many people. It's going to take away from so many people that want to get work, and I know a lot of people that have developmental disabilities in the Castlegar and the Trail areas that work in the retail industry, that do that kind of hands-on service, and I've even done it myself, and I've had to do it and I remember having to do it in summertime when we had a garden center at our Walmart on Marcolan Drive. That we were doing it in the 40, like we were doing it in heat, and they weren't, and our bosses weren't giving us any, like we didn't have any air conditioning outside.
Sure.
We were having to haul like big bags of steer manure and stuff into people's cars.
Yeah. Cody,
and we were doing it in 40, 50 degree heat.
That's a lot of heat. Cody, I really appreciate your call and your perspective, and I want to pick up on something you said and put it to David. The great Kathy Brown, who works with us, talked about people with mobility issues, people with sight issues. These machines are not always user-friendly for people who are dealing with various challenges. Has that come up before in your research?
Not as specifically as that, but I totally understand it. And I would say that falls under my 80-20 rule. Again, I think retail today at its core is going through a massive crisis. And the crisis isn't, does everyone want to shop online? Because I don't think they do.
Right.
I think for retail it is, who are we? What do we want to be and become? And I think the more they turn a store into an automated vehicle, you're not really differentiating that much from an Amazon or something on the web. And I think if you listen to the last caller, there is a huge value for that individual in being able to interact and people that know them. Tends to happen a little bit more, I think, in smaller neighborhoods or small town. The other thing I pick up there is when you're in smaller places in Canada, you're not just a shopper, you're often an employee or your friends are employees.
Sure.
And so there's sort of a brand image when retail starts to cut labor. Who is that in the best interest of is one of the questions, in front of us, and everyone wants to pay less. So I'm going to argue that shoppers send conflicting messages. They want to buy Canadian and have full employment, and they don't want to pay anything. But these are all the complexities that retail is trying to navigate right now.
Just before we go to Clarine in North Vancouver, I do want to ask you, how much do these machines cost? Do you know? Like checkout machines?
Well, yeah, and the cost isn't just the hardware.
Maintenance.
The software, you're always, think of any software you have, you're always doing upgrades. There's a subscription, there's the maintenance, there's the training, troubleshooting, and the installations. And so it varies, but it could be in sort of the tens of thousands per lane, all the way up to 100,000. And you've probably seen some that are getting really sophisticated. For example, when you're talking about produce, you can sort of identify visually what that item is. And there's a lot more features coming down the path, but it's an expensive investment. And then once it's in, the retailer's going to want to try and put as much traffic through it to pay it off.
Right. Clarine joins us from North Vancouver. Clarine, where do you come down on this?
This subject makes me so angry. I want to deal face-to-face with a person. I don't want to deal with a machine that is supplanting a person working. I think it's like social media. People are so involved with screens instead of facing somebody and interacting with them and their emotions and how you respond to them and they respond to you. And when you deal with a person at a counter, that interaction is so valuable, and so many people are missing out on that.
What impact, Clarine, do you think the pandemic had on that? When we were wearing masks, when we were told to keep our distance, keeping in mind that grocery store workers were, at least in the first part of the pandemic, were hailed as heroes because they were still allowed to go to work.
Well, that's great. I mean, but I wore a mask. I shopped. In fact, because of my age, when I'm when I'm indoors, I wear a mask when I go shopping.
Yep.
But it didn't change anything for me. I just really, really think that people are getting away from that interaction, that personal face-to-face contact. And I think that is so important. And I think a lot of people are losing out.
Clarine, we really appreciate your call. Thank you very much for joining us. David Ian Gray, Dig 360. Interesting around that human connection we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and we talk about the consumer. There's a lot of shades of consumer, and there are those who maybe have a little bit more time, and they value that human connection. They might value sort of the little stores they go into where they might know the owner.
Right.
There are other segments where they're so time crunched and they need to get in and out fast, and they do not want to have that interaction. And there's no right or wrong. It's just we're dealing with different needs at different times. Sometimes the same person could be experiencing both in the course of a week. I think when retailers with self-checkout are deploying it properly, it really is there to, if I have a few items and I just need to get out fast, I have another outlet, or I could still go to the cash lane. At the core, though, I think a lot of this is around trust in the institution of retail. And I think there's some challenges there right now. When we believe in that store, we kind of believe that, yeah, they're giving us options, so we have choice. If we feel like they're steering us into a direction that's their agenda, rightly or wrongly, just our perception, we start to bristle, and then we don't have that good experience.
Let's get through some more calls now. Mohammed joins us from Langford. Mohammed, what do you think of this?
Well, hello, thank you. I certainly appreciate the convenience of having the self-checkout, but it's just the same way as the banks have used ATMs to replace tellers. That's what they're doing with using the self-checkout to replace staff. Meanwhile, the grocery stores are making exorbitant profits at this point in time. They don't want to pay people any more money. They're trying to eliminate more jobs. And we can see that from an inflationary standpoint, groceries are still extremely high. So I think that the grocery companies are extremely greedy, have no interest in providing jobs to people, and want to maximize profits for the shareholders at the cost of everyday people.
Mohammed, if I can ask, does that prompt you to change your spending habits, where you buy, checkout lane, etc.?
Yes, it absolutely does. I try and look for places that will provide good service and that they have staff available to answer questions, not necessarily even at the checkout, but in general. So, yes, it does affect how I shop and what I look at and where I go.
Mohammed, thanks very much for your call. David, I saw you nodding along to some of what he said.
Well, that goes to that trust issue that's a big issue. And we're talking about a lot of retail. I think that we're talking primarily their grocery.
That's right.
With a lot of the food inflation, and we're seeing, again, record profits. That's not always the case with other variants of retail that are doing self-checkout. And I think the industry, it behooves the industry to make their case in a much better way, a much more persuasive way, that this is to everyone's benefit, including, obviously, they're in business to make money. We can't shy away from that. But record profits and then people feeling like they're getting kind of manipulated in some way, that may not be true, but that's the perception, and perception's reality. And I totally understand where Mohammed came from.
Keith has been on the line with us from Whistler. Thanks for your patience, Keith. What do you think?
Yeah, I work in the grocery industry in sales and visit a lot of different stores. In the time I've been waiting there, I've had a lot of thoughts with regards to it. The first one was security. I was in a big box retailer about 3 months ago, and they had a video camera at every self-checkout. And I was in last week, and I noticed the camera wasn't there. So I asked the cashier. I just said, "I'm curious, where did the camera go?" And he says, "Well, it's still there. It's just hidden." So one thing to be aware of, that you're being recorded at every moment. Even, of course, when you leave most stores, there are cameras. I understand that, but you're still getting recorded as you're going through. So storing information, things like that. I mean, the grocery stores as well are smart with how they're doing it. They're, forcing you at some point. Everyone's got their point, with even buying groceries. Hey, I only want to support local, buy local. And then when you see your price of honey is $15 a kilo at one place and 10 at another, everyone's got their kind of, breaking point.
Sure.
So that's what they're doing with the lineups at the grocery store. There's nobody in the self-checkout. There's a huge lineup with a cashier. What am I going to do? So things like that. And there's one area that I do find interesting is the Sunshine Coast, where to find people to actually work in your grocery store, the amount of people that live on the coast that, number one, are not retired or not children, want to work at your grocery store, that dwindles quite quickly. So I definitely see a need for something like that up there when you physically can't get the staff. A friend of mine used to run the Your Independent Grocer up in Sechelt, and during COVID, he said it was just a zoo, just trying to just keep people that can put things on a shelf. So you're dealing with a limited base there. So just some general thoughts, and I get it sometimes where there might be a need, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Keith, you work on the inside, if I can call it that. Do you have a preference when you're buying groceries?
Yeah, I do still like and to your caller a couple ago, the lady with regards to connection. I understand as people, possibly, or maybe a bit, not just elderly, but anybody, you want that connection. You want that little joke. You want to have that connection with that person going through. So I certainly do prefer face-to-face and, chatting to people that way. It's how I like to do it. At the same time, if I'm pushed and in a bit of a rush, and I can be out in 30 seconds. So that kind of thing. I certainly do like the interaction and chatting to the people that are selling me the food.
All right. Keith, thanks for joining us. Sort of an industry insider, if we could call him that. David, that's an interesting perspective, eh?
Yeah, well, the very quick one that is real, and I should have brought it up, is there is a retail staffing crisis right now. And so, if you're looking at stores and feeling like they're a little short-staffed, that's not necessarily by design on the part of the retailer. But, consumer behavior is super interesting because we're creatures of habit almost instinctively or subconsciously.
Right.
And so when I hear about this idea of connection, I think a lot of us, if we really step back from it, we'd like to have that connection when we're trying to make a decision in the aisle where we're looking for something. When we have that connection at the very end of the process at the cashier, you're getting it, but it's probably suboptimal, right? Because by then you've done your shop, and if you didn't find something, you're not going to leave and go back and get it necessarily. So I think if the promise that the retailers are making is that we'll have more help for you while you're shopping, and we're going to provide that by reducing when you don't really need it at the end, I could see an argument for that.
Because you want to be able to find the person that'll help you find the dill pickles when you can't find the bloody things.
That's right.
But that's only anecdotal experience. Doug is joining us from Salmon Arm. Doug, what do you think?
So, hi guys, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Where do you come down on this?
So I'm going to sound like Keith and Mohammed, but I use both. I own a delivery business, so when I'm in a rush, I use the self-checkout. But if I have time, I'm like Keith. I like to chat with the cashiers because I have a rapport with them, and I get to know how their kids are. They get to know how I'm doing or whatever, and I like that. But I'm going to sound like Mohammed to some degree. My big beef with the self-checkouts are that the companies are making record profits, and I understand they're in it to make money, but if you're bagging it, if you're ringing it in, if you're doing everything, why can't they knock off, if you're choosing to use the self-checkout, why can't they knock off $1 or $2? And I mean, it's the same. I have the same argument with like the self-checkouts at the airport, right? Like you buy a ticket online, you check your bag, you print off the ticket, you do everything. And the tickets at the airports are super expensive. Like the airlines, I understand, are also trying to make a buck, and it's super hard in the airline industry. But if you're doing 98.5% of the work, why not cut off a bit of the, like they talk about people who fly on airlines being grouchy. Well, it's because the prices are high and they've done most of the work.
Yeah, you raise a good point, Doug, and we appreciate the call. How many retailers, though, David, would be willing to offer you a discount if you, quote, do most of the work.
It's so funny you say that. And I'm shooting myself in the foot here because I reportedly would get hired by retailers, but I feel strongly about this. Nobody else is listening right now, right, Dan? I'm just kidding. So when this started, and this goes back about 20 years, early 2000s, self-checkout started coming in. That was kind of my take on it. If you're going to be sort of doing the work, does that mean you get a discounted service? The answer from the industry was, this is our way of keeping prices low. The issue we have today keeps coming up again and again, is there's no social proof in the minds of the shoppers right now. There's such a trust gap between the retailer and the shopper. It's almost a conflicted relationship right now, where no one believes that they actually are keeping prices low.
I'm just going to jump to some emails. We're running up against the clock. Glenn writes us, I do not do self-checkout. I'm retired with a pension, and when I worked, I made a good salary. My job is protected, and when I retired early, I took a buyout negotiated by the union. I can stand in the line for a cashier as long as necessary. Not everyone has that option, obviously, but that's Glenn's experience. Laura writes, it's practically impossible to entertain toddlers, keep an eye on them, and check out a large grocery cart as well as bag it. For that reason, I don't shop places with limited cashiers. And Steve writes, I'm opposed to self-checkout terminals and routinely avoid them. We know they reduce job opportunities for people. Self-checkouts place an added burden of time and trouble on the consumer, eliminating customer service for the purpose of increasing company profits. Last word to you, David, when it comes to this balance, do you think retailers will find it eventually?
They'll have to, but I think younger people are more adaptive. I think a lot of the things that are digitally enhanced right now, there's a generational divide, and that'll just take time. And I do think that at the end of the day, retail is trying to make sure they're competing against others. And by the way, they're competing for investment dollars, not just consumer dollars, because it takes a lot of money to evolve and to modernize. And we may not think we need it, but we do. We need it to be fast. We want to order online, pick up at store. All these things take investment. And so there's immense pressure on the numbers. And we also know that customer experience at the end of the day will matter. I think what we're hearing here is offer choice and offer solutions, not just say, hey, you're going to check out automatically.
David Ian Gray, founder of Dig360 retail company headquartered here in Vancouver. Thanks very much for joining us. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
And thank you to everybody who joined us on BC Today for your emails, for your calls. Apologies we couldn't get to all of them. You can check us at BC Today. Email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. Listen to the show again on CBC Listen. I'm Dan Burritt, in for Michelle Elliott all this week. Let's chat tomorrow.